Army came in and said, we're looking for a site to do a dirty bomb drill of a nuclear terrorist attack. Our Army Corps of Engineers came in, demolished parts of the building. They got all the theater kids from Kingston High, fake blood and tattered clothes to play casualties and dead bodies that lied amongst the wreckage. And then the Army came in and did the whole bagging and tagging people, putting them through decontamination procedures.
Welcome back to How Much Can I Make? I'm your host, Mirav Ozeri. Today, I'm joined by Zach Shaw, a 30-year veteran in journalism who works as a writer, editor, and web manager for Hudson Valley One, which is a weekly paper with wide reach across the Hudson Valley. In this episode, we'll find out how the rapidly changing landscape of journalism has shaped his work and what it really means to make a living in local newspaper today. So, let's dive right in. Okay, so let's start with how did you get into journalism and what was your 30 years career at the Hudson Valley Publishing like?
Oh boy, it's been an adventure. I got into journalism because I enjoyed writing and I went to school for journalism, but in my first semester of school, I saw Ulster Publishing. They had an ad for writers. So I applied to be a writer, and I wasn't a good enough writer at the time, but I lied and said I know how to do desktop publishing because I was good with computers. Somehow got that job, and I laid out newspapers and advertisements for quite a while, and then eventually they let me start writing, and I've been writing ever since.
Did you study journalism or writing?
I took one journalism class, but mostly I was self-taught, and I wrote my own zine when I was in high school about the local music scene. So definitely by the time I was writing for the paper, I had written a lot, and then, just kept writing stuff on local culture and some news items. Writing kind of has been in everything I've done since then, even outside of journalism. It's just something I love to do.
People still subscribe to the print paper?
People still subscribe, and not to be macabre, they're dying out. Most of the younger people are definitely going online. So increasingly we're doing more, so normally a weekly, but now we're doing daily news because there's kind of no such thing as a weekly online. I think slowly it will probably transition to a more daily operation. But when I started in 97 and around the 90s, early 2000s, local news felt like it was in its heyday. They were publishing 5 newspapers, big, fat newspapers full of ads. And then the web came around and I helped them transition to the web. That was a lot of fun but that was back when the web was just these basic HTML pages. And so you were kind of inventing it as you went along. And back then it was the total opposite. Very few people used the online and everyone was paper. And now Hudson Valley One publishes just one paper, and by far the greatest readership is online. It's an order of magnitude bigger than the print readership.
So actually the publishing grew because of online, correct?
The audience grew for sure, but the advertising revenue has shrunk because especially now when we have social media and various other ways of getting out there for very cheap, I think a lot of businesses these days don't really feel like they need to advertise in print or online. And those that do, like a lot of the publications that are making money right now are paid for editorial. All those glossy magazines you see, the tourists pick up, a lot of those are almost 100% ads because even the editorial was paid for by the people who they're covering.
You edit the almanac, which is a lot about the culture. How do you decide what story to put in and what not to put in?
It's really hard because it's a very small budget. We typically only run 1 or 2 stories. I really try and cover events that have the biggest appeal to the widest audience or are interesting and unique. And that way we can really, I see part of my job as to drive heads into venues locally and constantly getting feedback. Oh, thanks for that article. We had a really great turnout. That's what I'm always aiming for. So I won't cover sold out events or things that I know are already going to be popular. We try and help the community in that way. And then also for people who do events and go through the trouble of sending me a press release or reaching out to me, that will often get you coverage because you're making it very easy for me to learn more about the event. And I got a great photo. So I'm surprised that more people don't send out press releases and information to editors. But if you're out there and you do events, I'd love to get more of them.
So you make the decision alone, or do you have a committee that you have to bring all your stories to the committee?
For the most part, I make the decisions alone. We have a weekly editorial meeting where, if we're going to change the way we do things. We talk about that, but we also collect events from over 200 venues. So we have we actually created a list of all the web pages that list all the events in the area. Instead of relying on people to submit their events to us, which they also do, we go out and collect them. So we have the most comprehensive event calendar. So it's really like every week I know everything that's going on, and it's pretty easy to see what cream rises to the top and what's the most interesting stuff to cover. And we do everything 1 week before the event, so it's kind of like geared toward people who don't know what they're going to do this weekend and they need some ideas. That's what we hope to do, connect them with great local events.
So you also maintain the website. What does your job exactly entails?
Mostly hoping that it doesn't break. It's pretty solid technology these days. I don't run into many problems, but yeah, every once in a while there'll be some misconfiguration or something happening that needs. So it's a lot more like I'm the web maintenance guy. We upgrade and we do improvements here and there. The whole thing is on such a shoestring budget that there's rarely the time or resources to do a whole lot. But so I kind of focus on just keeping everything running and making incremental improvements as we go along.
You also write cover articles about crime, accident, businesses, the kind of hard news for the area. What's the biggest challenge there?
Those stories are by far the most popular, have the most eyeballs on them. And you're dealing with people who have died or people who have allegedly commit crimes. So it's very important that you word everything very carefully, that you fact check everything 2 or 3 times, and just be sensitive. Those are the stories that will be way more straightforward and just kind of like, here are the facts. There's no color to it. There's no, writing it up fancy. It's serious business, but, you try and balance sensitivity to the subject matter, the victims. We've written about people who have been found innocent after being accused of crimes, and sort of like not a lot of newspapers will cover the person becoming innocent. So we try and follow up on that as well, so that if you don't Google that person's name, all you see is so-and-so accused of a crime. So far, I haven't really run into any major problems or pushback with that kind of stuff, which makes me feel like I'm doing my job well. But you just constantly live under the fear that you're going to get one fact wrong, and that's going to cause a major problem because there's just so much information we're putting out on a daily basis. Our accuracy is really like 99%. You don't want to make a mistake on an article like that.
Yeah, definitely. So you wear a lot of hats between the editor, the writer, the web. Which is your favorite, by the way?
I love covering breaking news. Even when it's scary, like there was a shooting 3 blocks away from me. No one got hurt. I felt I don't know. I love that feeling of breaking the news and being the first person to let everyone know, here's some important information about something that actually affects you on the local level. Perversely love the complicated business stories and making them digestible to people, because the most boring stuff to read and it's very complicated.
Right.
And even the civics, like the way the town board, and once you learn how they work and how wacky they are, it feels great to be the person that represents all the people who can't go to the board meeting because they have to work, on a Tuesday night or whatever. Like, I'm the person that allows them to maybe, see a little bit inside of how this stuff works and maybe make a better informed choice in the voting booth or just in their general lives. Typically, I'll write a couple of stories a day. We try and get it up as fast as possible. That's just the way the news is. Most people don't even read the articles anymore. They just read the headlines. So I think I'm pretty good at writing headlines, and that's what sets us apart, because that's just the truth. People are reading headlines and then not clicking on the article. So we can see it from the statistics.
Wow, really? Because all of our attention span went to 10 seconds. That's why.
It's very disheartening every time you see it. What can you do? You try and pack as much information in the headline, and you try and be first, you try and be accurate. And if the story is major, like it's a murder or, there's a pattern of things happening, I'll usually talk to one of our writers to have them follow up on that for the weekly paper and write something more in depth.
Does the paper hire writers? Does it work is it on a freelance basis? How does it work?
It used to be more staff oriented, but after COVID, they went from 4 or 5 papers that they were doing to just 1, for cost reasons. We still have some writers that are freelance writers, probably about a dozen or so. So everyone has their kind of lane of reporting. There isn't a lot of assigning stories so much as our writers surface what's interesting in their town and then write about that. And we kind of trust them to pick whatever's, the hot button issue of the day.
Let's say somebody like you 30 years ago is a writer, want to be a writer. What would you say would be a career path for somebody today getting into journalism?
Everything that I'm doing right now is with AI and automation, and I would start there. because there are going to be very few writers, editors left in the next few years that aren't
Wow.
using AI as a central tool, especially in news and journalism. It's not that AI is going to write the news. It's that it's such an incredibly helpful tool that allows you to essentially do more. In a few years, one journalist using AI tools could probably do the work of like 10 journalists.
Wow.
For example, like every article needs to be edited for style. We use AP style, which is the way things are punctuated and, just the technical details that are, it's time consuming and tedious as an editor to have to, check every punctuation mark. So just by pasting that into Chat GPT, you can edit your copy without touching a single word, just editing the little technical details. That just saved me, 20 minutes.
Right.
And I'm not going to use that 20 minutes to like eat popcorn or watch a movie. I'm going to write another article. And then automation is the other aspect where if you know how to use these web-based tools to do things automatically, then, for example, you could just have a police reporter that's an AI bot pulling all the police blotters, searching for specific crimes, doing background, checks on those people, writing up a draft of your article, and then you go in and add your human element to it.
So can somebody starting out today can actually make a living as a writer for a publication?
I hate to be a downer, but it's extraordinarily difficult unless you're chaining together a lot of different publications, because most of the local papers will be okay with you doing multiple stories as long as you don't do the same story, in every paper. And you could work for a big, like New York Times. I'm sure those writers get paid well. But for local news, most of the people are just barely scraping by if it's the only thing they do. Like I'd say all of us have at least one side hustle.
So that's really like almost a dying profession, you'd say, right?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like AI is going to replace all writers. It won't. There'll still be humans writing. It just will be far smaller number, and you'll need to be able to do more. Like it's already the case that if you really want to make a living being a writer, like you have to have domain expertise in a field such that you can, write a book, you can create online content. You got to have a lot more going on. I'm a musician too, and like you can't just play music anymore. You have to have a TikTok channel and an Instagram, and you have to be creating content. And I've always been the person that's like, well, you can either complain about it and do it the old way, or you can learn the new way. So I think as long as you're learning the new way, you'll always have a shot at making a living and making a splash with your writing. But if you're pretending like it's 30 years ago, it's just we're in such a different landscape. I'm just astounded that Hudson Valley One still exists. I tell Getty every few years, I'm like, you're gonna be out of business in 5 years, and he keeps proving me wrong. So got to respect that.
What is your day-to-day like?
So one of the things I love about working for a weekly is it's a weekly deadline cycle. I mean, I do breaking news every day. I'll look at dozens of sources to try and figure out what's going on, and then I'll write about that.
So is there one story that you worked on that stuck with you?
The one that comes to mind is just every once in a while you get to do some crazy off-the-wall stuff in this job. And the King's Inn in Kingston they were planning on demolishing it. It was an old hotel called the King's Inn on Broadway. And so it's falling apart. The Army came in and said, we're looking for a site to do a dirty bomb drill of a nuclear terrorist attack. This is perfect. Our Army Corps of Engineers came in, demolished parts of the building. They got all the theater kids from Kingston High, fake blood and tattered clothes to play casualties and dead bodies that lied amongst the wreckage. And then the Army came in and did the whole bagging and tagging people, putting them through decontamination procedures. And we're talking to generals, we're talking to the police chief, the fire chief. So, you just find yourself in the middle of a situation that you'd never be able to participate in. But really quickly, like the best stuff is when article makes a difference. Like our writer Rocco Schmost wrote an article on where they were housing kind of the needy up here in Kingston, horrible conditions. And he exposed this, and county executive, everyone went up there, cleaned it all up. And like, it's rare, but when you can make a difference like that, even if all I do is edit that, it just feels really good. It feels like your job's more important than just able to read headlines on crimes and accidents.
How do you see local journalism changes in the next 5-10 years? Can you predict?
I love predicting the future. I try and live with one foot in the future. I think that the trend is going to continue to be citizen journalism, individual journalism. Like I heard a comedian the other day doing a bit where he says, we don't hear about the news now from cable news. We don't even hear about it from news outlets or local things. We hear about it from the person that it's happening to. Like if I saw a ship was bombed with a drone with a bunch of people on it last night, and the news came from them filming the drone bombing the ship as it was happening. That was how the world found out the video from the actual incident itself. That's the way it's going to be. And I think the role of journalists is going to be entirely to provide context to the news that's already being delivered by the public. And that's the way it should be. I think that's a way better method of getting information to people than some super corporatized, centralized, top-down approach that really is just about shaping a narrative to align with corporate interests and government interests. People holding up a camera to an actual news event that's happening in front of their faces, that's just the end-all be-all of news. On the other hand, AI-generated content will make it increasingly more difficult to tell what's real and what's not. It's already going in that direction.
Do you get news solicitation from citizens, from next door neighbor, from people that just saw something and send it to you?
That hardly ever happens. I mean, occasionally you'll get, hey, there's a bear in my backyard, and people love bear in my backyard stories, but it's mostly just being posted straight to social media. And if anything, I would be reaching out to someone on social media saying, can I use this? Then there's also kind of an implicit understanding that if you're sharing things publicly on social media, that's the idea. You want to continue to amplify it and share it far and wide. So 20% of the news I break comes from a social media post, whether it's by a police department or local rumor. Besides crimes and murders, people love businesses opening and closing. By far, like the second most popular type of content compared to crime.
Business opening and closing.
Just people go nuts if there's a new sushi restaurant or their beloved, deli is closing. Huge traffic.
Wow. All right. If you weren't a journalist, what do you think you would have done?
But that's what's so great about being a journalist. I don't have to regret doing anything else because this has always ever been at most like a 20, 30 hour a week thing. Like I do it probably 20 hours a week now. So I got to do all the other stuff. I got to be a musician. I get to do all my side hustles. I got lucky in getting hooked up with Ulster Publishing early when I was 17. Incredibly lucky because they are really like a family to me in all the good and bad ways, right? A slightly dysfunctional family. I love them and I love what I do, and I'm lucky for that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. I just want to tell everybody to tune in next week. We're going to have another segment with Zach about his side hustle, an eBay store. Totally worth listening to if you're dreaming of side hustles.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap for today. If you have a comment or question or would like us to cover a certain job, please let us know. Visit our website at howmuchcanimake.info. We would love to hear from you. And on your way out, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anyone who is curious about their next job. See you next time.